Welcome to this basics video on the Elna Supermatic, the classic Elna Supermatic. Let's just get the case open here. So just open the latch, pull this flap up here, and the two halves of the case separate there. And there's the green beast there. And in the case there's the knee controller there clipped into the case. Power cable just plugs in to here, and you've got the light switch here and the knee lever. So they recommend 5 inches from the edge of the table to the front of the machine. So it's probably about 5 inches there, and the knee lever just slots in like a little bayonet fitting. Sits like that. Accessory tray. So this is the two-tone green model. They come in this two-tone and also a just outright green. It's the sort of olive green of this hand wheel, this in this base here. So instead of the lighter green here, it's just all olive green. Here's an example of the full green model as opposed to the two-tone here. So this one's not in great nick. It's cosmetically not in very good condition, but mechanically still really good. So if you're looking for the buttonhole feature, there's this mechanism sitting on top of this arm here, and whereas if you have a look at this machine here, there's no mechanism here. So you can still do buttonholes with these, just it's more of a manual process. So just keep an eye out, you know, if you're looking for one to do more sort of automatic type buttonholes, make sure you get the one with the buttonhole mechanism there. The other differences, the fairly minor differences, the knee lever on these ones is attached, it's just hinged like that there. It just sits there. The other differences I've noticed on some models is the bobbin winder. This one kind of, you know, hinges up like that, whereas some of them just slot straight across. So slight differences there, not huge differences. Another common, it's not really a fault, but something that does happen with these machines is the little knob here comes off, so and you just get left with a little metal lever. It's not too big a deal. It's still usable, it's just uncomfortable. So this one here is, you know, still got the knob there. And on this model it is probably a bit more important because you've got this that can pull out, that's to do with the buttonhole. So not having the knob on there can be a bit of a pain. Just another note on the buttonhole, there's this buttonholing attachment that comes with this model and attaches in here. I'll show that, as I say, in a separate video, but if you've got one with the buttonhole facility, you also need this attachment as well. Now we'll start with bobbin winding. The Supermatics in general have a bobbin, it's a special bobbin. You know, you wouldn't use these in any other machine. Apart from, you know, the later models of Supermatic, the SU Star series and whatnot, but you generally can tell they've got holes on the top and no holes on the bottom. Although the early models did have a bobbin that had holes in both ends there. They, as I say, they are a specific bobbin for this model, so you do need to make sure you get the right bobbins. They have a little slot, it's probably fairly hard to see here, but on the inside there's a slot that runs all the way, you know, the length of inside of that hole there, the little raised piece on the bobbin winder here, and that you know, mates up with that slot on the inside of the shaft there. So you know, they are quite specialised sort of bobbins. Obviously the diameter of this needs to be the right size as well to fit the hole here, and also the outside diameter of the bobbin needs to be the right size to fit into the bobbin case as such, and also the height matters as well. So yeah, but a dead giveaway is if you see a bobbin that's got holes one side but not the other, you could be fairly sure that they're Elna Supermatic bobbins. So we'll start by just putting a bobbin on there. So just turn that until it locates into the slot there, like that, and it's in the engaged position there. And if you want to wind a bobbin without the needle going up and down, you can loosen this little clutch knob here. If you loosen that, the hand wheel will turn, but the machine won't actually turn over. When you tighten this, the machine will turn. Okay, so loosen that. So you put your thread on the spool pin there, and then just come around this loop here, and then I normally just go around a few times clockwise on that one, and then just give it a bit of go there. Just lightly on there, you don't want to put too much pressure. That will stretch the thread. So I'm just stopping it from bouncing around. Okay, and the bobbin will stop winding automatically because of the stopper here. Pushes the bobbin winder away from the drive wheel to stop it from winding. So there we have the wound bobbin. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten the clutch here back up so that we've got drive happening there now. Okay. Whenever you run a machine without any fabric under the presser foot here, just make sure the presser foot's up off the feed dogs, because the feed dogs will wear away at the bottom of the presser foot otherwise. So threading the bobbin, that's, you know, the front view there. So we're just getting a sort of end-on view here with the bobbin cover there. Just opens up, just hinges back, and you can see the hook mechanism turning there. So I turn the machine, and this is the bobbin case in here. You'll see there's a little slot here, yeah, like a little slot here as well. Okay, so I thread these bobbins so that they will, when you pull the thread, the bobbin will turn anti-clockwise. So I'm just pulling between my fingers there. So drop bobbin in, and the thread goes into the first slot here. And it's a good idea to, when you're pulling it into the first slot, just hold the bobbin tight, pull there, and that's actually flicked under the little tension spring here now. And then we want to come up to the little slot here, this second slot here, like so. But I can see that the bobbin thread is actually not quite under the tension. I'll try and get a better view of that. Just had to get my torch to see that. So there's two little fingers on the tension spring, and I can see that the thread is not under those. It's kind of coming out the top side of the tension disc rather than the or the tension spring, rather than between the two little fingers. The only way really to get that down is to hold back on the bobbin, hold a bit of tension on the bobbin, and then hold tension on the thread and push so that it clicks down. Now it's in between the two little fingers. If you have one of these machines, have a close look, you'll see the two little fingers, and just try threading the bobbin. You'll see that without doing that the thread won't go into those under that spring properly. And then that should just pull nice and smoothly there. That bobbin. And that's a good test. You know, you can get a lot from just feeling that. It should be nice and smooth, no snags, no tight spots or loose, going tight and loose, things like that. That can indicate, you know, buckled bobbins with snags on them, things like that. So that's good there. Before we thread the machine, I'll show you how to install the needle. So bring the needle bar up, you know, as high as it'll come, and the needles, they have a flat. I've shown this in other videos. They have a flat on the shank here, and they're circular. The rest of it's circular here. So that's the flat bit there, and the flat needs to go face away from you. So that's the flat there. Okay, and then just carefully try not to touch the point of the needle on the presser foot or the plate there, and then just push the needle right up into that hole there until it hits the stopper. You can feel that, and then hold that tight and just turn the little knurled nut there, or the knurled screw, needle set screw. As for threading, we want to take this out from here. That's the bobbin winder loop there. Take the thread out. This is looking from behind the machine, and just through that loop there, and we want to come down through the tension discs here. Right, so next you go through the tension discs here, and then left to right through the take-up lever. And then down through this next loop here, and once you've done this one here, and behind this little guide on the needle bar clamp there, like so, and then we thread front to back, like so. And then you'll also notice that there's actually a little cutout here, and that not only allows the bobbin to come up through when you extract the bobbin, but it also is a little gap for the bobbin thread to come through before you pull it up. And just a note on extracting the bobbin, you have to make sure you've got good fingernails or just a little screwdriver or something just to hook under there and pull that out. Some of the later models had a little plastic device that would come down and grip inside the ring here, and then you could just pull that little plastic thing that was spring loaded on the Star Series model. But yeah, good fingernail, a little screwdriver, get that out. Right, so turn the machine over to pick the thread up. There we go. Get both the bobbin thread coming up through the plate and the needle thread coming down under the presser foot there. So we're ready to sew there. Right, before we get into sewing there, I'll just show you some of the controls here. So probably the first one to start with is the stitch length here. Now there's a scale here from 0 to 4 up here. They're your forward stitches. So 4 being the longest, 0 just being standstill basically. So for your close sort of satin stitching, you want to be down, you know, at 0.5 here, 1, somewhere around there. Reverse is down here. So 0 to 4 down here is your reversing stitches. So what you can do is you set, say you're happy with stitch length 3. I think that refers to 3mm, this being a European machine. Swiss made, this one. So what you can do is you can bring this little stopper down. You just undo this little knurled nut here, and that allows the stopper to move. Stopper up against the stitch length lever there. Tighten that up, and that means if you're going down into reverse and back up again, you're just coming up to the stopper, which is, you know, where you want your stitch length to be for consistent stitch length. And then you can also do the same for reversing. So I'm setting it to number 3 reverse. Just bring up the stopper, tighten the little knurled nut, and that way you can just, when you're in forward, you want to do a back stitch, you can just go down to the stopper, back up again. That's your back tacking stitch. Don't worry too much about you'll notice there are little arrows with plus and minus here. That's to do with balancing the pattern stitches and the buttonhole. We won't go too far into that in this video. And down here, just below the stitch length, we have the left, centre and right needle positioning. I'll show you that. That positions the needle to the left in the slot, or to the right or centre, and anywhere in between actually. So that's good for manual buttonholing. And this lever here is the width of the stitch. So if you're on zigzag, 4 over here is the widest zigzag. 3, 2, 1, and so that's 1's the narrowest zigzag, and 0 is just straight. Under the top cover here, we've got the Elnagraph, what's called Elnagraph, which is the area where you put the pattern cams. So that particular cam there, for instance, this is actually called a double cam. You'll see it's got 2 separate sort of cams. They're locked together. That provides this pattern here where it's doing not just zigzagging, but it's reversing at times as well. So one cam's for zigzagging, one's for the reversing mechanism. So they're called double cams. Single cams just look like that there. They've got one cam there, and that's just a scallop type stitch. Now you notice this little ring here, marker. Oh, and by the way, this cam here is 05, so that's cam number 5. We've got cam 107, that one's 101. You notice the little marker here. If I turn the machine over, you'll see this turning. You'll see this little locator pin coming around. So that so this here, on the underside of this is a little hole for the locator pin directly under there. So that just gives you an idea of where to line the cam up. So the little post here is going to go up into the hole. By the way, when you're changing cams, always have the machine on the 0, not over in 4. or 1. No, just nowhere but 0. Okay, and then you just sit the cam in like that, and that's locked in there now. So to remove the cam, click that little spring, and it's a spring loaded mechanism, pops the cam out. Nice and easy. Some of the earlier models they didn't have this here. They actually have a screw. This is the earlier model. I'll just show you this here. So the earlier models actually got a screw here, a nut as such, that you take out or you take off. Once you've got the nut off there, there's this little tool, little sort of spade tool here. You just get under there and remove that. So yeah, that's the older model, and you can actually see the pattern cam on this one's actually got a hole right through it, so you can see the little locator. Little locator there, pops straight on. Like that, and then you just put the locking nut back on. Let's just put this number 5 cam in. It's in there now, and close the door. We won't be using that right away because I'll demonstrate the straight stitches first. Okay, so we're ready to sew there. So I noticed the tension wasn't right here. That's the looks like the top thread's either too tight or the bottom thread's too loose. So I had a quick look at the tension. Molly's turned up again. Hello, Molly. Say hello. Right. What I was saying about the bobbin, I've taken the plate off just for just to make it easier to see. So it looked to me as though the top tension was either too tight or the bottom tension was too loose, and I did notice that the bottom tension was set, well, it should be set to 1, Molly. It should be set to 1, but it was set down on about half, and if you get a little screwdriver you can actually turn the little dial here. So not sure if you'll be able to see that, but there's a 0 there and a 1 over here, and it was set on about half, which is about there. So I just got the little screwdriver and turned that so that this lever here was pointing to 1. You might be able to see that a bit better on this diagram here from the manual. If Molly moved her head, there you go, Molly, you're a pain. So this is the what I was referring to here, the little screw and the lever that points to the screw there. So generally, for general sewing, you would sew on 1. The only time you really need to change those settings, this is the back page of the manual. You are a right pain, aren't you? Come on. This is the back page. It folds out, and lower thread tension column here tells you. So over here is all the different operations, and you just match that across here to the lower thread tension, so you can see mostly on 1. So that half there, that's for elastic thread. So the ones I'll just cover in this video will be twin needling, where twin needle, double discs with twin needle, set it to between 1 and 2.5. So, you know, that's just trial and error type thing. Someone's actually written down here too, hem stitching 1.5 to 2, overlock with disc 149, cording foot, set it to 1. But the other one that we'll be dealing with is a manual buttonholing. Buttonholes 1.5 to 2.5. So what that does is it pulls the top thread down under the fabric and just makes a nice tidy buttonhole on top. This manual's seen better days too. And it's not actually the manual specifically for this machine, it's actually for the green one I showed you before, not for the later two-tone. I'm not sure if I've got a manual for the two-tone version, but this one shows you everything you need. Yeah, shall we sew your tail up? Eh? Shall we? Righto, let's not sew the cat's tail. You won't like that, will you? Right, so just going to set to straight stitching here. Hopefully this tension's better now. I'll set that lower. Yeah, it's looking a lot better. If you need to set the top tension, that's here. So, you know, low tension 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably around 5, or you know, it depends on the thread. Sometimes with the modern synthetic threads, you know, you might find that you could be down on 4 or even 3. It's really just a matter of trying with the different threads and different fabrics. If you're sewing jeans, heavyweight, with a thicker thread, thicker needle, you might want to go up to 8 or 9 even, you know. It's generally around 5. But that's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good there. So now I'm going to put the stitch width lever. This stitch width lever over here on 4. Remember we've got the scallop type pattern cam, and I'm going to try the stitch length down on about 1. If you're doing these sort of close type, what I've heard called satin stitching, I don't think technically that's quite the right word for satin stitching, but anyway, I call it satin stitching. I'll show you in the manual what satin stitching actually is. I found out the other day. Now, you do need to change the foot if you're using this close type stitching, and this is the standard foot. So if we compare these 2 feet, the standard foot on the left there, and then the cording foot on the right, you can see that the cording foot's actually got a little cutout area on the back there, and that's just so that the close stitches have got room in here to feed out the back, whereas they would tend on the standard foot to trap there. So yeah, I've also been calling that a satin stitch foot, or which is technically not the right terminology. In the manual it says it's a cording foot. So yeah, designed for sewing cord and whatnot on, and gives it room for the cord in here. So let's install the cording foot. Get that on there. Now I've got stitch length down on 1, width on 4. So we could probably bring that stitch length down, setting it to 0.5. So you can see that's a lot closer now as opposed to that's set to 1 there, that's 0.5 there. So for standard zigzag I'm choosing disc 3. Let's get, take that back. So removing disc 5 there, putting in disc 3, go to the full width. Let's take that stitch length up a fraction. Okay. Now I'm just looking on the back there. The tension's probably, lower tension's probably a little bit tight. As I say, it all sort of depends. I mean, these machines were set up, you know, in the 50s using 1950s thread and probably pure cotton, possibly. So, you know, they do need a little bit of tweaking here and there, but I would be tempted to, if I wasn't worried about anyone seeing the bottom there, I'd leave that. If I was, I don't know, using 2 different colours of thread, 2 different colours of fabric maybe, yep, that would definitely show up. So I'd be tempted just to loosen that lower thread there, but at this stage that's fine. Just taking the stitch width down to 2, and I'm also going to be changing this wheel lever here to bring the needle to the left or the right positions. So when I talk about that, moving the needle to the left or right, I'm changing this here. At the moment we're in the centre position. And if I go to the left position, I want to bring the needle out of the work too when you do this. So always turn the machine in operating direction, bring the needle out. I'm switching the, turning the knob for the left hand position, and you'll see there that it's throwing between the centre and the left now. And then needle up over to the right position, and now it's throwing between the centre and the right. So that's useful for things like buttonholing, manual buttonholing. Buttonholing, again we need to put on the appropriate foot, and that tells you in the back page of the manual what feet are required for certain tasks, you know, what the general settings of the machine are, tensions, things like that. So if you can get your hands on the manual, probably you could download it somewhere. You can refer to that. Needle in the left position, stitch length down on 0.5, width on 2. We'll do the first bar. So that's doing the left bar. I've made that extremely long, just for demonstration there. And then you want to turn the machine so that the needle is down in its right hand throw. So it's a left throw, right throw. It's more like the centre of the buttonhole. If I turn that, extremely long buttonhole. Oh, by the way, set the bobbin tension at, what did it say, between 1.5 and 2.5. Okay, so do that before you start. So I've finished on the right hand throw there. I'm turning the material 180 degrees there. Press the foot down, needle up on 4, and we just do a few small stitches there, say 3 or 4 stitches. The manual says 1/16 of an inch, and then we want back to 2 for the third bar. stop just before the start of the first bar that you did, 1/16 of an inch or a few stitches. Needle out of the work up to stitch width 4 for that final bar, a few stitches, and then needle out of the work again and just tie off the stitches by setting the stitch width to 0. You might want to come back a little bit because it's going to feed forward. Just a few tying stitches there, and there we have a massive buttonhole. Yeah, those tying stitches didn't quite line up there. You might want to sort of manually position that as you're tying those final stitches off there. So just quickly demonstrate that there. 2. First bar done, needle in the right, 180, needle out, switch to 4, a few stitches, needle out, back to 2, needle out, 4, and then needle out to 0 and tie off just a few stitches there. There we have it. Right, darning. You have this darning attachment here, also a cover for the feed dogs. That really just stops the feed dogs from trying to feed. It's similar to a drop feed on other models, makes and models. Okay, so first of all remove the buttonhole foot here, and you just want to be careful too that if you have been buttonholing to bring the needle positioning back to the center. And then you want to bring the bottom thread through the darning plate from bottom to top. Just makes it easier, saves you having to pull the bobbin thread back up, and the darning plate just sits, clips in there over top. Just manually bring the needle down just to make sure it's lining up with the hole there. Make sure you're not on zigzag, it could ruin your day. And this darning attachment clips onto the foot bar, and that lever there actually goes over the top of this bar here on the needle bar. So screw that in. Screw that in tight actually, because it can easily come loose. And I also like to put the thread down through the darning foot here. Okay, and then bring your fabric in, press the foot down, and away we go. Now probably a good idea just to, if you can, hold the two threads. So if you can't get to the bottom one, maybe just hold the top thread there, and we're ready to go. Oh, needle break. The manual suggests setting the tension down between 0 and 3. I probably wouldn't want to go to 0, but I'm going to go for about 1.5. The reason for that is because if the tension's too high, the needle can bend and collide with this darning plate here and break the needle. So just want to be careful of that. Press the foot down. I would just hold the thread there, just maybe a couple of hand turns there just to make sure everything's in order. don't judge my darning skills, they're not flash. Neither are my embroidery skills, I can tell you that. So let's try a little bit of what you might do in embroidery. Go. It's like a Christmas tree. Yeah, look, made a Christmas tree. How did I manage that? Wasn't even trying. So yeah, that's pretty good, and I think the tension. Yeah, tension's pretty good on the back there too. I've seen a lot of machines, they pull on the corners, pulling a little bit there, but that's probably just me not being very careful there. Just looking at that, I mean, I'd be tempted to probably drop the lower tension a little bit. It's pulling a little bit there, but that's the thing with you know, sewing. You just get onto a scrap piece of material, something similar to what you're sewing, have a go, check the tensions. If you think they're looking a bit off, you just go ahead and adjust them, as long as you remember where they were before you started you know, adjusting tensions. Just go ahead and try them out. As long as you don't go too loose or too tight, you should be fairly good, you know, sort of stick within, say, 1 and 8, or you can go up to 9 quite tight, fairly safely, I would say. So yeah, that's darning. That's quite nice and easy to handle there. And so twin needling, we have this little adapter, twin needle adapter. So it'll actually take two separate single needles. There's no need for an actual twin needle that you would, you know, purchase that's already sort of made up as a twin needle. That's all set there. You'll notice there's two little holes here for threading the separate threads through there. So to do that, we need just the small screwdriver from the kit would do. So let's remove this darning foot and the plate. Let's just take that out. Let's remove that needle. Okay, just using the small screwdriver. Undo the screw here. That could be quite tight. You don't need to remove it completely. I'd suggest when you're kind of doing things like this, where you've got your hands in here, needles around, bits and pieces, probably just pull the power cord out so you don't, just in case you bump with your knee on the controller. That could also ruin your day. And we've got the twin needle attachment here. I'm just backing the screw out because I can see it's in too far. It's actually screwed right up. Just backing that out a little bit. That should fit on there now. You'll notice a little divot there where the screw screws in and self-centers. Just tighten that up. Yep, that's on good there. Let's just grab another needle here. By the way, just using standard universal 130/705H Smets needles. These are size 80, metric, 12 imperial. I would suggest always using Smets needles. I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to needles. I will only use Smets really, unless I have to use other brands. I would just pay the extra, I don't know, 50 cents, $1 to get these, rather than some of those other cheaper brands. some of the really cheap needles, I've seen some really cheap needles, they've got the flat on the wrong side. So effectively you're putting the needle in reverse and back to front. Yeah. I wouldn't trust them. Okay, so we've got two positions for that needle to go into. One needle. Now that set screw will tighten both needles, so we want to get both of them in there. It's a bit fiddly. Flats to the back. Both needles in there. Make sure they're right in. Screw the screw up, and there we go. We've got twin needle. Okay, so for the second spool, just put it on the second spool holder there. Hello. And then just through this eyelet here, the same as the first thread. So we've got two threads going through there. You just take special note of this area here. There's a plate here in the tensioner, and the two threads go either side of this plate. So you can see the first thread's going to the left side, and so we'll get the other thread, the second one, yes Molly, to go on the right hand side of that plate, so they're separated by the plate. Second thread just follows the path of the first thread there through the take up, like so. Both threads through this eyelet here, and then you want to go through each of the individual eyelets in the twin needle clamp. And this is where a pair of tweezers comes in handy. There's one there. And the cat is very not handy at all. That, you're biting the tweezers. Why? Why would you do that? Strangest cat. Oh, I don't know. There's one. That is not good for your teeth. Come on. And the second one through the second eyelet. Wait. Oh no. You make this job so hard. I'm trying to do a video here, Molly. Molly has chewed the end of it and it's made it all wet, so it's hard to get through the hole there. Right. Trim that. And then just thread through front to back. That noise is Molly trying to get through the Venetian blinds, isn't it? Yes. You have to change the bobbin threading. There's one little extra hole to go through there. The best way to show you that is to remove the plate. These plates just clip in. So just pull it up at the back end there. That slips out. Now the bobbin thread, so I'm leaving that threaded, but it just goes through another hole. This is just for twin needle. There's another little hole there, I think. That one. Let's put that plate back on. Like that. Let's draw up the bobbin thread just like normal. Just a note that you want to be careful that you're not still sort of on the full zigzag, because if you have a look, that left needle is going to be hitting the plate there, and on the other throw it's going to be the right needle hitting there, so just want to be careful of that. So make sure you got your zigzag down to 0. I think the widest you can go is 2 on the zigzag. Yeah, that's going to clear there. 2. Also your needle positioning left and right, you want to make sure that that's in the center, because you want it coming straight down, so the needles are just either side of center there. If you're on the right hand throw, it's going to hit there. Left hand, it's going to hit there. So yeah, just be aware of that. Cording foot on. So I'm just going to go up. It's on about 2. I'm not going to get too fussy with that at the moment. So this is, and top tension I'm putting back up to 5. Something seems quite tight. Very good. Yeah, that bottom thread's too tight now. I've gone back down to 1 there just to see what we get there. That seems quite tight as well. It doesn't feel too, the thread tension, lower thread tension doesn't feel too tight. It's looking a bit better there now. Yeah. So yeah, I think maybe just with a little bit of adjustment of the tension there, that could get better. I'll just about consider loosening that bottom tension off even more. So yeah, but that's a quick demonstration on twin needling there. Let's take a quick look at the double disc here. So quite good for stretch materials, etc., stretch seams. So when doing the double discs, changing those, make sure the width's on 0 as explained before, but also the stitch length is on 0 as well. And just I'll eject this one, line up the little locator there, get the double disc down into there, and then also to bring the stitch length lever right down to A, and you'll see this linkage move across. That's the reversing mechanism engaging there. So we're on A there now, and so that's going to engage that double disc. Stitch width on 4. So that's like a wishbone type pattern there. So this plus and minus here, that closes up the stretch stitch when you go to plus, and minus opens it out slightly. So to demonstrate that, I'll set it on plus. And now I'm setting it to minus, just to see what the difference is there. So it's quite subtle, the difference there. That's the plus stitches there. You can see they're slightly longer, and this is where it was set to minus here, and that you can see is quite a bit closer there. That's the original. That's the original seam there, set to neither plus or minus. So yeah, just used for you know, balancing the stitch out a bit, and that's also used in the automatic buttonhole feature. The presser foot pressure is adjusted here, so when you can see the little dot here with the greater than, less than signs and the plus and the minus, that's sort of a standard foot pressure, and so going towards negative reduces the pressure on the foot, okay, until it goes no more, so you can adjust that as needed, and likewise in the positive direction. So that's just your presser foot pressure. Maintenance is fairly straightforward with these machines. There's a oil hole here, so just a drop of oil there. So they recommend oiling these machines about every, well, they say every day before you sew. But if you're doing very short runs, I wouldn't go that far, but you know, maybe every 8 hours of use. So a drop there. I've got the these points here, quite clear, you know, big red rings here, one there, so a drop there, and there's a couple of points in here. It's probably hard to show on camera, but if you have a close look in the manual, it shows you a drop there. There's another one on that top of that linkage up there, a drop here on the feed dog shaft, one down the centre of the bobbin case there. You remove the bobbin and get to that one, and there's also another one hiding down right down in here in front of the feed dog post there. We'll have a close look at the manual to get a clearer view of that. The only other thing I would suggest is if you're storing it long term, and I do show this if you have a look in at my video relating to the drive pulley. I'll link it in the description, but I would recommend unscrewing this here, unscrew the stopper, unscrew this here, and let the pulley sit out away from the drive pulley, the motor drive pulley, because they end up with a little flat on them, and it makes the machines very rumbly. But yeah, if you are long-term storing the machine, take a look at my pulley replacement video for this model. As I say, I'll link it in down below. There's another oil hole just here as well. This one here. Just a quick note, long-term storage as well. I would always, even short-term storage, put a piece of fabric under and leave the presser foot down, clamping on there. So the carry case actually converts to a flat bed as well. It's quite ingenious. So you just pull that apart there, and I think you can see already that this shape here will fit on the arm. The case is hinged here, so this hinges in like so, and actually it clips together. There's two little posts here that locate into these two little rubber. Oh, there's a rubber missing there, but yeah, that'll clip in here. But the idea is that case here sits on like that, so you've got this big flat work surface, so that should clip together there. Yeah, not wanting to go together, but that's yeah, a really ingenious use of the the actual case for it. Just have a quick look through the manual here very quickly. It's got a fold out area here with descriptions of all the parts, the accessories here listed. We've gone through those ones. Some of the accessories, that's a gathering foot there, buttonhole, yeah, seen that one, button sewing, so that works in conjunction with this other little cover that goes over the plate there to stop the feeds, so that clamps the buttons. Zip foot and a felling foot, that's called. Just general maintenance cleaning, so you lift the plate and get in there with the brush, clean under there. All the oiling points, some of the oiling points here, pretty much all the ones that I went through there. Cleaning, you take the plate off, clean in under the feed dogs. That's changing the press of feet, oiling the bobbin, needle choice, foot pressure, Elnagraph, thread tensions, the cover, converting it to the flatbed. Just your standard feet, hemming, darning, cording, using cording, cord stitches. Now that's satin stitching, this here is satin stitching. Shaded embroidery, all sorts of different techniques, working with the discs, tricot material, buttonholing, using the double discs, needle clamp, twin needle, some extra accessories that you can get for all these different patterns. Yeah, so quite a nice little manual. And of course the reference chart in the back there, which we were referring to earlier. I thought this was quite neat too. This is like a little sales brochure type thing, decorative work, so showing some of the patterns. Some more pattern stitches, darning, showing the darning here. Built-in lamp, yeah, bits and pieces, part of the photo of the factory there, and all the agents in New Zealand for back in the day for Elna. So a little bit on the Elnagraph there. So yeah, that's quite a neat little brochure. Also found this, it's like an order form or something for parts. I noticed that the money is referred to in HK. I assume that's Hong Kong dollars, I'm assuming. So there's some attachments, ruffler kit, binder over here. There's the buttonhole, automatic buttonhole disc, $28.50 Hong Kong, by the look of that. Bobbins, bits and pieces. And there's a list of all the Elna disc designs. And you put your order in, and also this little book here on the different discs that are available as well. So this sort of all relates to that model really, I think, and even probably the star model. Yeah, so showing you how to do monogramming and bits and pieces that you can do that. Corded buttonholes, yeah, quite a neat little book. What do we got here? The Elna is never outdated because you can just go and buy more discs. So there's a little shot of all the the lower number discs. There's a whole heap of high number discs as well. If you have a look back here, these are the low number discs here, 1 through 36, and then they start up the higher numbers for the doubles, 101 through 148. Accessory tray just has a pile all your accessories into here, and your bobbins are stored there, bits and pieces. Just put the lid back on there, and storage areas for your spools of thread, things like that. And it just slides on like so. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that basic look. I know these videos go on for a bit, but yeah, to get all the information in, they really do take quite a while. I just had to do a bit of a rave about these machines. I know these videos go on for quite a while, but I think this model deserves a bit of a rave in conclusion. So had a wee think about it. I think the only potential negatives, and I call these potential only negatives, bearing in mind that these machines are 60 plus years old, some of them, so just keep that in the back of your mind while I go through this. The potential negatives is the you know, the knee lever control for speed. Some people like it. Hello, Molly. Some people don't mind the knee lever. Some people take a while to get used to it. And some people don't like it, just outright don't like it. So that's personal preference. The flat spot that occurs on the pulley here, you know, that's a slight negative. Really easy to fix if you have a look at my video where I go through the replacement of this pulley. It's really quick, easy, cheap. I mean, for the sake of 20 bucks or whatever these are still available, that's pretty straightforward. Hello. The only other thing I can think of is nothing really, but yeah, for all the years I've been working on sewing machines, since 1988 or somewhere around there, I've dealt with quite a few of these, this model. I have a small stash of about 10 that I went through to see what the various states of them were. I came across one that had smoke, the capacitors were starting to smoke, not unusual for capacitors to do that, and the motor was weak. And that's the only one I've ever seen. So another potential negative is brand new parts supply. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not really a problem, because all you really need is the pulley for and they're still available. So I've never had to get any other parts. The only other thing I've seen happen is sometimes the screw comes out of the this attached knee lever here, and sometimes they can be, you know, they can go missing. But you know, you could probably find replacements fairly easily for those. The other potential negative is the knee lever. Sometimes the knee lever might go astray. Not really a huge deal. Here's one that someone's made up. It's just made out of a piece of angle iron by the look of that, and a shaft, and put a pin through. So, you know, things like that can be created, made to replace them. As far as positives go, there are heaps. I mean, for a start, they look really cool. They're beautiful machines. They're fast, they're smooth, they're fairly reliable. I've never seen a hook pinion gear go. Unlike the later models, this is the Elna Star series, you might have seen these around. They tend to break the pinion gear. They must be made of a weaker material somehow, but these are 70s, late 60s, 70s, so you know, quite a bit later than these. And also these can break the Elnagraph drive gear as well. That's quite seldom that happens, but you know, breaking those gears can possibly be attributed to lack of maintenance, but still seeing a lot of these breaking that gear. Whereas, and all the time I've been working with machines and from the stash that I've gotten, had a look through, I've not seen any with these gears, pinion gears broken. There's a nylon gear in here for the feed, I've not seen one of those break, and I've not seen the Elnagraph drive gear break either. So I have to put this machine in the, you know, mechanical marvel territory, similar to the Husqvarna 21A that I did a video on, the mechanical marvel. Really impressive build quality, rugged and reliable, so no problems there. Some of the parts are interchangeable between the SU, the Star Series that I just showed you in these, likes of the feet, the throat plate here, or some people call them needle plate, bobbins. Yeah, there's quite a few interchangeable parts. Yeah, so I mean, what else can I say? If you see one of these out in the wild, you can probably fairly confidently assume that the pulley, little pulley is going to need, the motor pulley is going to need replacing. As I say, that's not hard. It's a quick, easy job, cheap parts. Apart from that, make sure it's got the knee lever attachment, sometimes found inside the case, as I showed earlier in the video. You can't really go wrong. I just go for it. The good thing about them is they're still quite functional today. I mean, you know, of course they're not going to do fancy lettering and all that stuff you can do with an electronic machine, but for a mechanical machine, I don't think you can ask for anything else. It does buttonholes, you've got all the attachments generally come with them. They can, I'm sure you could source attachments for them. So yeah, I totally rate these machines. If you ever see one, grab it, and even if you've got a fancy machine yourself, and who knows, you might find someone that needs a machine, and what a great machine to give someone, or to explore yourself. So yeah, no, highly recommended. I hope you enjoyed that video on the classic Elna Supermatic from the 1950s, and yeah, thank you very much for watching.